It's Monday evening, September 14th, and I got the subframe of the semi painted. Probably hard to see on the video, but it smells like paint fumes in here. The quart of chassis paint that I had ended up basically giving me one coat on everything and a second coat on a few spots. So don't think it's going to get two coats on everything up there. Then I'm going to work on the stabilizer a little bit more. I guess the bar actually is over there. But I got those bushings honed out this weekend, and was working earlier on grinding off the bushing on this one. The bushing was a little bit wider than the piece on the arm. So probably I'm going to try to make a little bit of a shim to put in there to take up the slack, to hopefully make sure there's no play there, or at least very, very little. So I'm working on getting this bushing so it doesn't stick out past the face on this end of the stabilizer bar. That way I'm going to make a shim that's 5/8 in the middle, so it'll kind of overlap all the way to the pin, and then mostly it's going to take up the slack on this surface is the idea. I think the design, so this bushing originally was a little bit narrower than this end of the cast part of the stabilizer bar deal, and I think that probably it's designed so that the bushing takes up the slack rotationally and in the pin, and then this is supposed to fit fairly tight in the weldment part to stop the side to side, and then not put stress on the bushing in the middle, but put the stress onto the casting. So I want to get this bushing where it's basically deeper from this perspective than the outside part of the arm. I think the back side is pretty much even. I need to check that with a straight edge, but I ground on this a little bit earlier and need to do just a little bit more kind of over in this area. So I don't want to take any material off of the actual arm itself, so I'm just using some painter's tape to make sure that I don't skin up or don't take anything significant off of that. I'm just going to take the grinding wheel and just kind of touch right in there and try to take a little bit off of the bushing without touching the arm. I didn't take video of that because I was afraid I would screw up and get into the shaft if I was trying to hold a camera while performing the actual operation. But now that we've got that cut, I'm just going to take and go across at a few different angles with a straight edge. I think we look pretty good. I might have a little bit at the bottom there, but I'm going to take a flashlight and shine in the backside just so I can see exactly what's touching on the straight edge, and then also check this back one, which I think it is pretty good. I might need to take a little bit off. It looks like it maybe is a little high at the backside here, but I'm going to get that basically so that the bushing is a little bit shorter than this surface on the casting, and then probably make about a 10 or 15 thousandth shim to take up the slack. Well, I successfully got the pins in. I've knocked this one back now, but I think I'm going to try to do a 15 thou shim. So I've got a piece cut out here. It's cut a little big, so it's about 1 3/4 inches, which is going to stick out, but I'm going to start big and then trim it down once we figure out exactly what we need. But I need to get a 5/8 hole in the middle of this, and how do you drill an accurate hole in really thin material? Hopefully by clamping it to something a little bit thicker. Well, it looks like we get to fix some stuff before we drill a hole here. I went to clamp my piece, and it seemed like the jaws moved more than they should. And basically, the piece that holds the bottom side, which maybe is flipped 180 degrees now, was partly held in by one of these screws. And I dug through all of the metal shavings here. Okay, got a metal sliver stuck in my little finger too. And I thought that maybe the screw would be down in here somewhere, but I didn't find it. Looked through the floor and found a screw that I think probably came off of the grinder, but no luck here. So fortunately I was able to find one that I think is the right thread in one of the magic bolt bins, and we're going to put this back on there and then get clamped up and see if we can drill a hole through this shim stock. there's a real machinist that watches this, probably I'm going to make them cry and unsubscribe. But basically we've got a piece of steel here, we got the shim stock clamped onto that, and then we're clamping the vice grips in the drill press vise, which is not necessarily the best way to do this, I don't think, but it should serve the purpose for our needs. So we're going to start. I just grabbed a random size bit, I don't even know what it is, but I'm going to drill pilot and probably step up 3 times to get to the 5/8 size that I want for the finished. And that way hopefully I'll be able to kind of see how it acts when I cut the second hole. There's a hole in the middle of this, so probably the first one's going to be ugly. You know how sharp this bit is either. Alright, change bits and step up to a little bit bigger size. So when I grabbed this piece of steel, I figured that the hole that was in it was going to be smaller than my finished size, but I didn't actually check that, so I hope that that is the case, because I really want the edges to be well supported when I do that final cut. I don't know if it'll show up, if you can see it, but there's kind of some shards sticking down on the bottom there, which I want to try to avoid if I can on the last one. But I think this was 13-30 seconds. I might step up once more, or we might just go straight to the 5/8. I think we're just going to go for it. Probably going to make another machinist cry spinning this 5/8 bit as fast as I am, but I'll try to go easy. Okay. Even with all the chattering, I think we're through, or we are through the shim stock, and it looks like probably have a pretty decent finish on the bottom edge. We'll pop it out here. Not bad. It's a little oversized, but probably good enough for what we're doing. Now I need to, I'll probably clean it up a little bit with some emery cloth. There's a little bit of a burr there, not bad by any means. And then see if I can get it fit down in there and figure out exactly how much and where I'm going to trim. I don't know that there's a lot of downside to leaving a pretty big area there. Probably I'm going to kind of lop it off into a roughly round or hexagonal shape of some sort. I can see that my hole is not perfectly centered. Probably should have actually marked that instead of just eyeballing it. But probably it'll serve the purpose. So get a little cleanup done, get that in there, get the pin driven through. I don't know if I'll weld this tonight or maybe wait until tomorrow, but we're making progress. I think we're in business. You can kind of see the shim stock right in there. I ended up having to pull both pins out to get the shim stock kind of orientated in there, but I think it seems pretty good right now. I haven't knocked this pin all the way through because I need to do a little bit more clean out. There's a lot of grease down inside those holes, and I kind of want to clean that up with some solvent of some sort before I weld it. But I think we are pretty much ready to weld this thing up. It's about 8:30 now, so I think I'm probably going to wait till tomorrow to mess with the welding part, because that's going to be somewhat of a process in itself. And probably going to try to take my time a little bit just so that we don't get the pins too hot, because I'm fairly certain that they're hardened. So if we get them super hot, we'll take the heat treat out of it. But hopefully should be able to do just a little bit of welding and get this thing ready to put back into the head. It's Tuesday morning, and Lizzie's excited. It was today, the 16th, I believe. Watch this 15th. Is that right? Anyway, so there's enough light that I can kind of show this a little better now. The chassis saver paint seems to have covered pretty well. I may have recoated the stuff that I did the second coat on too soon. It's like more of a hammer look. I think that's a hammer or something. But it's a lot better than it was. Hopefully it's going to seal in the rust and keep this structurally sound for a long time. I still need to do the rear stuff, but I'm not sure how soon that's going to happen. I probably am going to order another gallon of the paint so that I have a good supply, and that should be plenty to do this. And I may touch up some on the truck frame at some point, but most likely not before harvest. I don't know if I'll do the rear axles before harvest. It kind of depends how things shake out. When I did the stuff yesterday, I also didn't do these braces for the landing gear. I decided that probably I could do a better job on those if I took them off. And now that I have the front subframe done, it's not a big deal to leave the trailer hooked up to the truck. So at some point I'll hook it up to the truck, pull those off, so there's no weight on the landing gear and no risk of breaking anything, and then do those tubes. I don't know if I'll do the landing gear or not. The paint on it is really not in too bad a shape. There's a little bit of rust there, but not enough that's going to matter. But at least got something done on this deal. Hopefully it works. The other stuff on the agenda for today, I need to pull up that green cleaner and get some pictures taken of it, because I probably am just going to resell it if I can get a reasonable price for it. If I can't, we'll keep it around. I ordered some stuff for this, but it won't be here until probably the end of the week. So still a little bit unclear exactly what's going on, but I think at minimum I need a carb kit, because I think the float valve is probably not sealing right. I think that there's a possibility I could take it apart and clean it up and put it back together, but I kind of suspect it's never been touched. So with this four-wheeler being about 20 years old at this point, and maybe not having the greatest care in the world before I got it, and kind of unknown miles, the odometer cable was broken, or the speedometer cable was broken when I got it, so I suspect that it has a few miles on it. So most likely this is just going to get shoved in a corner for a week or so, and then going to get the stabilizer stuff welded together on the for the grain platform. So getting pretty close on this. I don't have a lot to do, just need to get the pins into position. Actually, I need to clean up some grease inside the holes, get the pins into position and get them welded in, and then put everything back together. I have a little bit of stuff to do on the combine, but not a ton. I don't know if I'll pull it out today or not. I've got all day today and all day tomorrow and part of the day on Thursday. Then I'll be down here working on harvest prep stuff. So I just need to decide exactly what's at the top of the to-do list. The way things are looking, I think there's a moderate chance that we may start trying to run some corn next week sometime. Depends a little bit on the weather and everything, but it seems like there's some that's black layered that seems to be drying down, or is definitely, I mean, it's in the mid-20s for moisture right now, so if we can get that down below 20, we'll probably start taking some. In general, it works well for us. We found to get at least one dryer bin full combine before we start doing soybeans, and I think with the corn being a little bit ahead, because we had a fairly warm summer overall, as far as growing degree days at least, probably there's going to be a good opportunity to do a little bit of corn before we do soybeans. The soybeans are coming along really well as well. We'll walk out there later when it's not quite as sopping wet on the ground from the dew. But the shorter season stuff is definitely losing most of their leaves. They're a ways off still at this point to be able to combine, but things are moving quickly, and I still have a lot of things on my to-do list. So we're going to get to it. We're all set up and got the PPE on. I don't know if I'm really going to be welding enough that I'm going to have to worry about getting sunburned, but whenever you MIG weld, you get a lot of UV light, so try to wear gloves and long sleeves, and obviously a mask for your eyes. So I think I've got this all cleaned up and ready to go. Got quite a bit of greasy goo out of the inside of those holes, so hopefully be able to get a nice bead right around there and get the pin tied into the tabs, and then let her cool off and hopefully put it back on here either later this morning or this afternoon. Well, I didn't get all the grease out of there. I'm going to tack it in on all the pins and then come back and spot in the rest of the way around. I don't do any close-ups of the welds because I'm not a welder, but I think they're stuck. We managed to get it not super hot, so I welded a little bit and then took a break and finished it up. It seems to be nice and tight, but not too hard to move. I can't feel any play anywhere. Basically, this is going to see back and forth force. So if I kind of stand on it and see if it moves, it doesn't. So I'm hoping that we are fixed at least as well as it started, and if it makes it as many acres from here on as it did from the original point to now, hopefully that'll get me as long as I own the head. I also started getting ready to pull the TG around to work on the air conditioner, and batteries were down, which is kind of odd. That tractor had brand new batteries in it when I got it about 2 years ago, a little less than 2 years ago. And it was fine when I moved stuff around in the shed a week and a half ago or so, but it wouldn't turn over. Well, it would try to turn over, but not turn over fast enough to start. So put the charger on that. I'm gonna go see if it's charged up enough to start and get it pulled around and start ripping things apart and try to get an air conditioner working in that tractor. I seem to have gotten sidetracked a little bit. I was gonna move the water trailer kind of out of the way into the fence row equipment line, but it didn't drain it out really well when we parked it there before, and there's quite a bit of algae that's grown in there. So we always run a strainer going into the pump that we use to fill the sprayers, but if we have a lot of chunks, it'll still plug up the screen pretty often. So normally try to get as much stuff out. I mean, like kind of clean the inside of the tank at the end of the year so that it's ready to go for next year. So I've got it pulled up here by the shop where we've got a hillside so that the outlet into the tank is low because the actual fitting is a ways up from the floor, and it's hard to get it clear empty, and want not very much water to be in there, as little water as possible to be in there for the winter so that it doesn't freeze and expand and crack the tank or cause stress in the plastic that'll make it fail down the road. So Lizzie is super excited because we've got the spray nozzle hooked up on the hose, but I'm gonna crawl in there and kind of flush that out as much as I can and get those chunks out the output fitting. Just run out onto the ground. The pump's not actually hooked up to the trailer right now because it's in a shed under roof at this point. But gonna take about hopefully 20 minutes, half an hour to get this thing cleaned up and then get it parked over by the tree line there, and then work on the air conditioner. Not perfect, but a whole lot better. I'm gonna sort of try to slosh the rest of it out a little bit before we get off this slope and get this thing parked and start on the next thing. Nobody yacked on the yard. That's the algae that we've just flushed out of the spray tank, the water tank. There's probably that much more on the back of the trailer. I do see that we lost our weight for the pump cover, so I'm going to pick that up just so it's not laying in the middle of the grass. I'm working on a game plan on the air conditioner stuff on this tractor. I got all the parts pulled out here. So I had bought a compressor in the spring and also a receiver dryer, but the receiver dryer was wrong. and the place that I got it from didn't have the right one. So finally got the right stuff all figured out, I think. So we've got a compressor, receiver, dryer. I went ahead and got a new thermostatic expansion valve, which I've got to take the seat out to put that in and to get to those hoses. And then I also got a full O-ring kit that should be sort of application specific. So basically anything that I can get to without a lot of trouble, I'm going to go ahead and put new O-rings in. Since we're going to have the whole system empty, I want to kind of try to do things right and hopefully not have any more problems. And then I did go ahead and get the UV dye oil. So if it does leak in the future, hopefully that'll help us figure out where. But I think the first step is actually going to be taking the planter stuff out of here, because the evaporator is down basically underneath the back of the seat here. And to get to that thermostatic expansion valve, I'm pretty sure the seat has to come out. So I'm going to take the planter stuff out just so that it's out of the way here, or have a little less stuff in the cab, and that way it won't be in the field of vision during harvest as well. We're making some progress. Got the armrest unhooked and kind of all the stuff back here either taken out or moved up out of the way, and tip the seat forward. I think this is pretty heavy. I could take some bolts out and split the seat from the base and take it out of here, I think, but I think just tipping it forward is going to give me enough access that I'm maybe just going to do that. So the thermostatic expansion valve is right here. As you can see, it's covered up with some insulating tape of some sort. So I'm going to pretty much have to cut that off. I'm going to try to cut it on the side or the bottom, where I can put it back on, hopefully. But there's definitely not enough clearance, even if I had the right stuff, to be able to wrap it around, unless I take a whole bunch more stuff apart. And I'm not exactly sure how this box around here comes apart, but it looks like that's more than I want to mess with. So this is the evaporator and the heater core built into one, so I think it looks like probably the AC is in this side and the heater is in this side. And I suspect the previous owner of this tractor ran the tractor without these filter things. So the way that this works, it sucks air in through these into the back of here, and then this goes out to the fan is here and blows out to the vents. Because there's a whole bunch of junk on the back side of this evaporator slash heater core. And I had tried to suck some of it out going in like through this passage behind the seat after I bought the tractor, but there's definitely a lot more there. So I also want to get that cleaned up while we have this out of here, because we want to have good airflow through that heat exchanger part of the system. It took a fight, but we got the expansion valve out of there. Need to do a little research. I'm not sure if I'm going to put this stuff back. I think the idea is that you're trying to, well, I thought that you would be insulating the liquid line, but normally the liquid line would be the small one, and then you'd have vapor going back this way. I don't know if you still get, if this can end up colder because you have additional pressure. There shouldn't be pressure drop through that top section though. I don't know, this is a little weird, but anyway, it seems like having this insulation wrap on here really caused there to be moisture trapped around these steel fittings into the aluminum block, which, if you remember anything from chemistry, maybe even, I don't know if they cover it in high school chemistry or not, but aluminum and steel are dissimilar metals, and there's basically differences in the electron potential of the atoms that cause them to have galvanic corrosion. Basically, the aluminum gets stuck in the steel. So you can see there's a little bit of aluminum in the threads on that. And for some reason, you know, maybe that's kind of corroded in general onto the steel tube. The brass ones came out super nice, steel ones, giant pain. But I did get them out eventually. Need to do a little cleanup on this one, it looks like, for sure. The bottom one I don't think is too bad. Yeah, the threads you can still see like that cadmium plating or whatever on. But probably going to do a little cleanup there. The expansion valve itself doesn't look bad. There's a little bit of kind of stuff in that bottom port. So the way this works, I think, is that this would be your return line coming back through on the way out of the cooler. So that's basically, you're looking at the incoming coolant temperature versus the outgoing coolant temperature. So if you're basically, it's trying to maintain a certain amount of pressure drop across the coil, so it'll close and open the liquid line to allow either more or less Freon to go through the coils in order to maintain whatever its set point is for that thermal valve. So the next step is going to be to figure out exactly what all I'm going to try to take loose, and then flush out whatever I'm going to flush out. You can buy special stuff to flush with, I think. Since I don't think this is super contaminated, I'm probably just going to take like some solvent brake cleaner, most likely, and squirt that down the hose and then blow it out with the air gun. And then put the new compressor and the receiver dryer on, and new O-rings on whatever I can get to without too much trouble. And then hopefully that'll be good enough. We'll have to vacuum the system down and make sure that we don't have any leaks anywhere before we put any Freon in. But since the system was completely empty, and I don't have the stuff to recover Freon, if we have a problem down the road, we'll have to take it somewhere else to do it legally. I kind of want to try to make sure that things are pretty correct when we go to put the Freon in. Like most things in life, spend most of your time on prep and not as much on the other part, and hopefully that'll work out. We're getting there. I've got the vacuum pump hooked up, and it's been running for about a little over half an hour, less than 45 minutes. We're down to about negative 28, so we're not quite where we need to be yet, but making progress. It's possible that since the system was totally empty and I flushed everything, that it might take a little longer than normal to get stuff vacuumed down. I got along pretty okay on getting stuff cleaned up and put back. I flushed all of the line sections. I didn't see too much scum come out anywhere. I got quite a bit of oil out of the condenser, and made a heck of a mess when I was putting oil back into the system. So you're supposed to put half the oil in the compressor, and then the directions just said half in the rest of the system. And if I'd been smart, I should have just dumped it all into the receiver dryer before I put the receiver dryer on. But I already had it put on. Well, I mean, I basically put it on while I was waiting for oil to run into the compressor. So I thought I'd be smart and pour it into a line, which I thought was the line to the cab, to the evaporator and stuff. But it turned out that was the line back to the compressor because I wasn't thinking about it correctly. So then 4.5 ounces of oil ran straight out onto the ground. But if that's the only thing I screw up today, I'm doing good. I do need to get stuff put back together in here. Dad has some heat wrap stuff, although I think it's different than this. So I'm probably going to try to kind of tape this back together somehow. I really don't know how necessary this is, because with this type of expansion valve, I mean, I think normally you have it wrapped so that you're getting a proper reading where the thermal expansion valve measures the temperature. The bottom is going to be liquid, and this would be the return, so it's going to measure here and then control the valve on the bottom. Which it seems like, since you're measuring the same place as the actuator, that maybe that's not super necessary. I don't know. I mean, I guess since it was there before, I'm probably going to try to put something back, but I'm going to maybe make a hole in the bottom so that any condensation can drip out the bottom rather than corroding these steel fittings on this end of the block. I just got done weighing in the Freon using a digital scale, and we've got cold air, which is pretty awesome, because in the past the only time we had cold air in this tractor was when it was cold outside. It was a little bigger project than I had hoped, but that's the way things go. I did get the evaporator coil cleaned out good, so I think that should make everything pretty decent for a while, hopefully. We've got good filters on here now, so hopefully it won't suck any junk in and get plugged up again. I do have some more cleanup to do in the cab because since I was running with the windows open part of the time planting, it got super dusty in here, plus like all the dirt that I tracked in. So I'm gonna probably pick up tools and then kind of vacuum stuff up a little bit. And I don't have too much to do on this tractor other than I need to kind of lube the front end and check fluids and stuff like that, and maybe blow out the cab air filter at least. Making progress anyway. It's about 8 o'clock now and got everything put back together. Went ahead and washed the tractor and cleaned out the cab most of the way. Still need to clean windows and stuff. A few more things to do on this, but the air conditioner works and that was the big project for today.